Ever since I married, I've been tormented by my spiteful mother-in-law, Cindy, and father-in-law, Bob. To make matters worse, they constantly scolded me for not being able to have children. Even my husband, John, who was supposed to support me, said this.
My sister in law, Linda, is young and beautiful, and unlike you, she gave us a child right away. I'm so jealous of my brother.
Cindy even accused me of not being able to have children because I was cheating, leading to an outrageous statement.
I caught evidence of her cheating with a hidden camera.
I came up with a plan and decided to gather all our relatives under the guise of celebrating my nephew's birthday to reveal Cindy's so-called evidence of cheating. When the evidence was played, Linda, John, and Bob all muttered, "I knew it," with despair written all over their faces. My name is Michelle Thompson. I'm 34 years old. I work in the international business department of a mid-sized trading company. I live with my husband, John, who works for a steel manufacturer, and his parents. We don't have children yet. I met John at a party I attended at the insistence of a college friend. I wasn't particularly interested in getting married then, as I had just started finding my job fascinating after 4 years. But my friend was persistent, so I couldn't refuse. At the party, I was more interested in the special menu prepared by each store than in socializing, literally, sweets over flowers. I kept a slight distance from my friends who were actively mingling, and it was John, who was with a guy my friend was interested in, who I ended up hanging out with. John wasn't very enthusiastic either and was reluctantly dragged to the party. We both felt like outsiders and ended up sticking together. Still, I didn't exchange contact information with him, thinking it would be a one-time meeting. However, a week after the party, I received a call from an unknown number on my cell phone. Initially, I ignored it, but it kept ringing every 10 minutes after work hours. What the heck is this? Annoyed, I decided to block the number, but I thought I should find out who was calling, so I answered the phone. It turned out to be John from the party.
Oh, great. It's Michelle, right?
Although I was relieved to find out who the mystery caller was, I didn't remember giving John my number. When I questioned him, he calmly replied,
I asked your friend for it. She was more than happy to give it to me.
My friend, who hit it off with the guy John brought, decided to start dating him after meeting at the party. Meanwhile, John, who had missed his chance to ask for my contact information, got it from my friend after hearing about the relationship from his companion. Although I was surprised at both my friend and John, I ended up dating John, and a year later he proposed, and we got married. It wasn't a passionate love, but I thought I could live peacefully with John's easygoing nature. There were no issues on my side regarding the marriage. My parents separated when I started college. They didn't get a divorce because there was no particular benefit to doing so at this point. Friends who knew about my parents would ask if I was lonely. Still, I always felt it was the natural outcome since my parents were practically living separately, even while married. Still, since my parents paid my tuition during college, I visited each of them alternately during long breaks. However, after starting my job, I used my busy work schedule as an excuse to only update them about my life through social media. When I told my parents I was getting married, they said they would attend the ceremony if there was one. We're just going to register the marriage and not do anything special. When I told them that, they later sent a large sum of money as a wedding gift, which I felt was more than enough. Cindy and Bob, however, were displeased with my parents' way of handling the marriage, making snide remarks like,
How can they just send money for their only daughter's wedding? That's so disrespectful.
Absolutely. This doesn't bode well for the future.
but John defended me.
Money is also a form of love. It's weird for mom, who never worked, to say such things. And dad should know how hard it is to earn money and wouldn't say such things if he did.
I'm glad I chose him. I truly believed that. However, things started to go downhill 4 years into our marriage. The first trigger was my promotion at work. After working diligently in my assigned department since joining the company, I took the promotion exam that year and was recognized by my boss.
Michelle, you said during your interview that you wanted to be globally active. How about gaining some experience in the international business department first?
I was thrilled that my hard work was acknowledged and thought I could share this joy with John. However, John became visibly upset and yelled,
Oh, so what? Are you trying to say you're better than me because you got promoted?
Startled by John's unexpected reaction, I wondered if I had said something wrong and apologized. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way.
The fact that you get so defensive proves you're mocking me, doesn't it?
John threw his half-finished beer can into the trash and slammed the door as he stormed out of the apartment. He didn't come back for a week. I tried contacting him on his cell phone, but he didn't read my messages or answer my calls. I even called his office, but they said he was out, so all I could confirm was that he was safe. I considered waiting for him outside his office, but that would have humiliated John. So, I visited his parents' house to talk to Cindy and Bob. Even though I expected to be scolded, I had no other choice. Surprisingly, they let me in without much fuss, but as soon as I stepped into the living room,
What do you want now? Haven't you insulted me enough that you had to come here?
John was waiting, and he screamed at me, leaving me stunned. Of course, I immediately told him that wasn't my intention and apologized for any misunderstanding, but John wouldn't listen. To make matters worse, his parents joined in.
Just because you work doesn't mean you can act high and mighty. Don't you understand that's not acceptable for a daughter-in-law?
This is exactly why I was against marrying someone from such an unconventional family.
Their loud insults matched John's. No matter what I said, they kept lecturing me that I was at fault for hurting John's pride. In the end, they declared,
John doesn't want to return to the apartment he shared with you. If you don't want a divorce, you must move out of that apartment and live with us. We'll teach you how to be a proper daughter-in-law.
Looking back, I wonder why I didn't just say, fine, let's get divorced. But at that time, I still had feelings for John, and growing up with parents who were married in name only, I didn't understand what being a couple truly meant. As Cindy instructed, I moved out of the apartment and into John's parents' house shortly after. Cindy and Bob were very pleased with this arrangement, and I quickly understood why. John's older brother, Adam, who was 3 years older than John, had been living with their parents but had moved out about 3 months before my promotion. He left saying,
I have a girlfriend, and I'm moving out to live alone.
Cindy, who adored Adam because he graduated from a higher-ranked university than John, was shocked and deeply affected by this. However, the bigger problem was that Adam's departure meant the loss of the financial contribution he had been making to the household. This was because Cindy and Bob were show-offs with unnecessary pride. They loved gathering relatives and serving expensive food and drinks. Bob's post-retirement earnings were insufficient to cover these expenses, so they relied heavily on the money Adam contributed to the household. So, when John came home to vent about me, Cindy and Bob manipulated him into agreeing to have me move in with them. John, who had always felt overshadowed by Adam, suddenly enjoyed the attention and approval of his parents. When I realized this, I felt like scales had fallen from my eyes, but bad things kept happening. Not long after, Adam married his girlfriend, Linda, who was quite the manipulator. Linda was 6 years younger than Adam and 2 years younger than John and me. She looked delicate and fragile, which triggers a man's instinct to protect. This had the same effect on Bob and John, who became flustered and doting whenever Linda visited, practically becoming her entourage. Naturally, this didn't sit well with Cindy, who started blaming me.
John fawns over his brother's wife because you lack charm. If you'd show us a grandchild already, my husband would settle down as a grandfather.
She even suggested I quit my job to focus on getting pregnant. However, Cindy and Bob's extravagances increased household expenses, and John's salary alone couldn't cover them. Even when I printed out the household budget to explain, they wouldn't listen and kept blaming me.
It's all because you're bad at managing money. You're just making excuses.
Around that time, Linda got pregnant. Cindy, who had resented Linda, went into a frenzy over the first grandchild, her beloved Adam's child. She adored their baby, Oliver, doting on him like he was the apple of her eye. With her desire to see her grandchild, Cindy started eagerly welcoming Linda's visits, even saying,
Oh, how wonderful it would be to live under the same roof with such a lovely grandchild.
Linda is young and beautiful, and unlike you, she gave us a child immediately. I'm so jealous of my brother.
Then, John even started hurling those spiteful words at me sarcastically. Bob, too, would make outrageous statements.
That's right. We should kick out a wife who can't have children and have Adam and his family live here instead.
By this time, I started considering it. Maybe it's true. Since we don't have kids, leaving John and this house might be an option. Just then, Linda announced her second pregnancy. Cindy's grandchild fever grew even more intense, and her treatment of me became even harsher. She even spouted ridiculous theories.
You can't have children because you're cheating, aren't you? You're worried whether the child would be John's or your lover's.
I was too dumbfounded to respond, but I noticed Cindy grinning at me one evening during dinner. I asked her what was going on, and she said,
So, you were cheating after all, just as I suspected. I hired a professional to install hidden cameras and gather evidence of your infidelity. It's foolproof.
When Bob and John asked what was happening, Cindy declared this proudly, laughing loudly. Bob and John, though initially surprised, soon started grinning alongside Cindy.
If that's true, then it's divorce time.
Of course, we'll make sure she pays alimony.
Understood. Then, I'll use Oliver's birthday celebration next week to explain the situation to all the relatives. So I said just that. The celebration for Oliver's birthday, arranged by Cindy, was held in a lavish hotel banquet hall. Though somewhat annoyed by Cindy's bragging, the relatives enjoyed the food and drinks. As the party was winding down, I took the microphone and stepped up to the podium. Excuse me, everyone. I have a brief announcement to make. The relatives turned their attention to me, wondering what was going on. Cindy, John, and Bob were smirking, expecting me to confess my wrongdoings and discuss divorce. Adam and his family were the same. I signaled to the staff, and the screen was lowered behind me. The video began to play as the projector was brought in, and the lights dimmed. It started with a dimly lit hotel district, zooming in on the entrance of one of the hotels. As expected, John, Bob, and Linda's faces began to pale. Cindy, however, oblivious to their reactions, looked around curiously. The next moment, the camera captured a clear image that shocked the relatives. No wonder. Bob and Linda were on the screen, embracing as they left the hotel. The room fell silent as the video showed Linda and Bob repeatedly sharing passionate hugs, reluctant to part. The scene switches just as the two get into a taxi, showing the entrance of the same hotel again. But this time, Linda was holding hands with John, not Bob, as they left the hotel. John, Bob, and Linda were frozen, muttering, "I knew it." The room buzzed with shock again. I paused the video, turned the lights back on, and spoke into the microphone. The announcement I wanted to make is exactly what you saw. My husband, John, and my father-in-law, Bob, have been repeatedly cheating on Adam's wife, Linda. The evidence was captured by the investigation agency hired by Cindy. As I held up a thick stack of files in one hand, another wave of murmurs spread through the room. Waiting for the noise to subside, I revealed that Cindy had not hired the investigation agency to uncover Bob, John, and Linda's infidelity, but to find evidence of my supposed affair to kick me out. John probably fed her all sorts of lies about me because he found me a nuisance. It's quite something that she believed in. I said this with a light chuckle, and the relatives looked at John and Cindy with a mix of shock and disappointment. Cindy declared victory without checking the contents when the investigation agency reported they had evidence of my infidelity. But as you saw, there was no such thing. I displayed a photo on the screen. It was a snapshot from the hospital when Oliver was born. It showed Linda holding Oliver, Adam smiling beside her, and John and me in the background. Cindy disliked me so much that she didn't have a clear photo of me. So, she sent this photo to the investigation agency, asking them to catch my infidelity. When I glanced at Cindy, she looked stunned. However, the investigation agency mistakenly thought that the wife to be investigated was Linda, who was holding the child. When they started their investigation, they unexpectedly caught Bob and John repeatedly going to hotels with Linda. The agency, thinking Adam was the husband, reported to Cindy that they had the evidence on camera. Cindy mistook it as evidence of my infidelity. When she suddenly claimed to have proof of my affair, I was momentarily surprised, but quickly remembered something. I recalled the name of the investigation agency from the statements of the family credit card Cindy used. Cindy, being a spendthrift, had me create a family card for her shopping when her personal credit limit was insufficient. She would make large purchases without consulting me, so I set up the family card statement to be viewable via an app so she could check the monthly withdrawal amount. So, the next day, I took a half day off and went to the investigation agency I found online to explain the situation. I then formally requested an investigation from them. Realizing their mistake, the agency agreed to take on my request to make up for it. They quickly provided the results. Linda, Bob, and John were pale with the screen removed and the lights back on. I approached my great uncle and great aunt, whom Cindy and Bob respected the most, and bowed my head. I'm truly sorry, but I don't want the children, especially Oliver, to hear what comes next. Could someone please take them to another room? My great uncle and great aunt walked over to Linda, picked up Oliver, and handed him to their children. A few women also led other children to another room. Left in the room were furious relatives, a stunned Cindy and Adam. And Bob, John, and Linda were shrinking under the glares. Cindy, trembling with rage, suddenly leaped toward Linda.
How could you betray me and Adam by cheating with my husband and John?
As soon as she screamed, Cindy lunged at Linda. Several relatives quickly restrained Cindy, but the sight of her enraged face left Linda trembling. Bob and John were equally shaken. I decided to deliver the final blow. Given the circumstances, I will be divorcing John. I'm sorry for causing trouble to everyone until the end. The investigation agency has confirmed this inappropriate relationship among the three has been ongoing. There is no hope for marital reconciliation. I pressed a handkerchief to my face. Since learning of the investigation results, I've been tormented by the thought that Oliver and the child Linda is carrying might not be Adam's, but Bob's or John's. As I wavered slightly, several women rushed to support me, patting my back and holding my arms while hurling insults at the three.
How shameless they are. Disgusting. Poor thing.
The men looked at the three with cold disdain. Bob and John were silent, their faces pale. The room was filled only with Cindy's curses and Linda's sobs. The fallout from my revelation continued to spread. When Adam learned that his wife had been having an affair with his brother and father, he let loose for a while. Still, as he came to his senses, he seriously suspected the other allegation I had thrown out, that she had been mendicant.
Accusations of cuckoldry? That woman is obviously lying. Both Oliver and the baby are definitely your children.
Linda desperately pleaded, but once suspicion takes root, it cannot be erased with mere words. Adam secretly used a DNA test kit to check their paternity. The results confirmed his worst fears. Despite being confronted with the results, Linda refused to admit to having the children by Bob or John. Frustrated, Adam contacted Linda's parents. Linda's parents, shocked and unable to believe the story from Adam alone, visited my workplace to seek confirmation. Though it felt like a hassle, I knew it was a necessary step. I took the day off and arranged a meeting with Linda's parents and my attorney. Linda's parents were speechless when shown the documents and video from the investigation. Adam, however, smugly declared,
See, she betrayed me with my brother and father. There's no way Oliver and the unborn child are mine.
Could you please discuss that matter with the relevant parties elsewhere? Today, we're here to discuss claiming damages from your wife as Michelle's husband's affair partner, not to determine the father of the child.
Adam was surprised. No, of course not. Why would my attorney support Adam's case? Linda and her parents were also shocked.
We're not paying any damages. If John cheated with me, it was because Michelle was too focused on work and neglected her duties as a wife.
It's her own fault.
Linda sneered at me. Is that so? Then we'll have to let a third party decide, like a judge? However, when I responded that way, Linda's parents turned pale. No wonder Linda's parents were teachers at a prestigious girls' school in the region. A school that prided itself on nurturing good wives and wise mothers. Now, their daughter was involved in an ugly scandal with her brother-in-law and father-in-law, facing a lawsuit for damages. If this rumor spread, it would also affect Linda's parents. When I mentioned court, Linda's parents pulled her off the sofa and started apologizing profusely.
We are terribly sorry. We will ensure our daughter pays the full damages immediately.
But I didn't care who apologized at this point. I signaled to my lawyer, got up, and left. Later, my lawyer informed me that Adam, Linda, and her parents had a massive argument after we left, only calming down when threatened by the police. Soon after, Linda's parents, possibly trying to buy my silence, paid nearly double the damages we requested. So, I had no interest in what happened to Adam or Linda after all that. However, around the same time, I also requested alimony and property division from John. I learned about the fate of the entire in-law family from him. According to John, Adam sued Linda for divorce and damages. He refused to pay child support for Oliver and declared he would not support the unborn child unless a DNA test proved it was his. He planned to file a paternity denial suit as soon as the child was born. Although my situation was settled smoothly, Linda's terrified parents forced her to undergo a prenatal test despite her reluctance. The results revealed that the baby's father was not Adam, but John. Moreover, Oliver's father was Bob, which was beyond salvation. Cindy was shocked to learn that her beloved grandson Oliver was actually Bob's child, causing her to have a mental breakdown. She aged rapidly and is now almost bedridden, with Bob as her full-time caregiver. However, Adam sued Bob and John for alimony, claiming they were responsible for his marriage's breakdown. Plus, he told Bob,
If you can't pay the damages, I'll offset it with your inheritance share. But if that happens, I won't take care of you in your old age. John will have to do it.
However, Bob had already spent most of his retirement savings on expensive gifts for Linda, leaving little for inheritance. Thus, the inheritance was offset, and Bob and Cindy, having been disowned by Adam, clung to John. John, meanwhile, was dealing with my demands for damages and property division and was pressured by Linda, who had been divorced by Adam, to remarry her.
You have to take responsibility for me and the baby.
I'm sorry for everything. Please take me back. I love you, Michelle.
John pleaded, but it was clear he wanted not my love but a wife who would work for free and support the household. I had no lingering feelings for John, so I told him to communicate through my lawyer and blocked him on all but one social media account. After some time, the divorce was finalized. Despite some disputes, alimony and property division were paid in 2 installments. According to my lawyer, even though Linda didn't officially remarry John, she continued to live with his family and acted as his wife to those around her. However, after the relatives who attended the party spread the story, the neighbors began whispering about the shameless family. Linda eventually became a recluse. Linda neither helped Cindy nor cared for Oliver and the newborn, leading the kindergarten to report the situation to child services due to Oliver's dirty clothes. Eventually, Linda's parents took custody of the 2 children, but they told Linda as they left,
You are no longer our daughter. We are not your parents. Don't ever show your face to us again.
With nowhere else to turn, Linda became entirely dependent on John.
It seems that John is struggling to support 4 adults, including his mother, who needs care on his own salary.
My lawyer said. Moreover, according to an acquaintance who works at the same company as John, one of their relatives works at a subsidiary and has been spreading the story around.
They've added all sorts of entertaining embellishments.
And now he's being gossiped about as a loser worthy of a drama site.
Despite his humiliation, John couldn't afford to quit and continued working under the stigma. On the other hand, Adam somehow saw me as a fellow victim. But despite the degree of the situation, the fact remained that he looked down on me, calling me a woman who couldn't have children, along with Linda and his parents. Naturally, even when we crossed paths at work, I completely ignored Adam. Rumors eventually spread within my company, and Adam couldn't endure the whispers and gossip. He volunteered to transfer to a regional subsidiary. After everything settled, I received an offer to transfer to an overseas branch. Although I had expressed my desire to work overseas during my initial job interview, I was surprised when the opportunity unexpectedly arose. My supervisors encouraged me by recognizing the career I had steadily built since joining the company and the language skills I had developed in my spare time. Additionally, although it was partly out of sympathy, I was tired of the rumors at work, much like Adam. So, I decided to take the transfer offer and move abroad. Having somehow learned about the transfer, John sent a series of reconciliation messages through the only unblocked social media account. But since I planned to cancel my phone contract when I moved abroad, I ignored him. Despite everything, I was lucky to have severed ties with the in-laws. Thinking this way, I can handle any difficulties that lie ahead. I may seem opportunistic, but that's how I genuinely feel. I've been too self-deprecating until now. From now on, I will face everything with a positive attitude.